Welcome to Mystic Underground. I'm Mark.
And I'm Kent. Tonight's episode is called The Wailing.
We're going to peruse our book of supernatural events to tell of three terrifying tales, the first two being from my own experiences.
So get your vocal cords ready as it's time to scream.
Rewind!
This first story is called
The Monster in the Field.
In 2003, I was 16 years old and living in Gunnison, Colorado with my parents. We lived out in the country right next to a mountain range known as Hartman Rocks, which had boulders, sage, and recreational trails that stretched for 45 miles. My sister happened to be visiting at that time, and on that particular night, her and I were standing outside on a gravel driveway which extended 50 yards from my folks' house. The end of their driveway connected to a dirt road which formed a mile-wide circle in a gigantic cul-de-sac. It was about 11:30 p.m. and my sister was outside smoking a cigarette. I was just out there to give her company. After 10 minutes of standing there conversing, we started hearing screaming sounds coming from the middle of the cul-de-sac's big field. It sounded like the cries of something dying miserably. Along with the screams, we could hear heavy footsteps and what sounded like large, fluttering wings. The three sounds were moving in unison, as if one monstrous creature was stamping back and forth while screaming its head off and trying to fly. This unknown entity was moving at an incredible pace. I shined a flashlight out into the field, but as soon as I pointed it toward the sounds, the noises were instantly 100 yards to the right of where they just were. When I shined the light on their new location, they were far off to the left again within a matter of seconds. It was absolutely terrifying, and it was too dark out there to actually see anything. Whatever it was decided to run right at us, the noises growing louder and louder. I could have sworn that these wailing sounds were only 10 feet away by that point, but nothing could be seen in the flashlight's glow. And just like that, this creature was several hundred yards away from us again. It only took this thing a second or two to cover hundreds of meters at a time, which is impossible for any animal that humans currently know of. Once more, these noises grew closer and closer and became louder and louder. I was expecting something to run right into us at any moment. The screams grew so loud that my sister and I freaked out at the same time. I threw the flashlight in its direction and my sister tossed her smokes as we both booked it toward the house. I've never bolted through a front door faster in my life. Thankfully, we both made it inside safely. The next day, I searched the field for footprints or evidence of any kind, but found nothing. I certainly believe that this was something paranormal, but we'll never know for certain what it was. Next time you go camping or find yourself walking alone in the dark, listen closely, as the wailing monster might not be far behind.
Our next story is
Death in the Quarry.
In 2012, I was working as a security guard at an old cement plant and quarry in southeast Michigan. This massive facility was way out in the middle of nowhere, set several hundred yards back from the nearest road and miles away from the nearest town. I was a night shift guy, and when I wasn't out doing patrols, I had to stay in an office that had very large bay windows all around it, easily 270 degrees. To give you a better visual, this office looked like an airport's lookout tower. It was in the shape of an octagon, but with a long hallway connected to one side. The only lights anywhere on the property came from a small desk lamp and computer screen inside that office, making it the only lit up area in the entire quarry. So, in the dark, I stood out like a sore thumb and felt like I was sitting in front of a spotlight. Everything could see me from the surrounding tree line, but I couldn't see anything beyond 20 to 30 feet. One night, I was sitting at the desk when out of nowhere, I heard blood-curdling screams coming from a distant field. I could tell that several animals were fighting. One of them was getting torn to shreds. The screams grew softer as this poor creature lost the battle, and most likely its life. Those shrieks of death gave me a new kind of fear, one I hadn't experienced in security work before. It made me not want to even move, but what happened next was 10 times worse. I heard scraping sounds coming up the hallway toward the office door. It literally sounded like someone was dragging a shovel along the interior drywall. As soon as the noises got to the glass, it stopped. I swiveled in my chair and peered up the hall, but nothing was visible. I waited in my seat for several minutes before going to check it out. Once I garnered up the courage, I flipped the hallway lights on and worked my way through the rest of the facility. I shined a light into each dark room, but after a very thorough investigation, I came up empty. Was this building haunted or something else? I'll never know for sure, but something was definitely inside that building with me. So hear these words and remember them. No matter where you go or what place you work, something supernatural might be stalking you or watching you from the dark. As you hear this, a malevolent spirit might just be following you home.
This next story is called
The Banshee.
Sent in by Jim Brom from Cumberland, Wisconsin. About 40 years ago, my friends and I went on a camping trip near Shell Lake in Serona Township, Wisconsin. The plan was to camp out and fish for a couple of days. Well, on the final evening, a few of us decided to head to Shell Lake for dinner and drinks, as it was a Saturday night after all. After a few hours of fun, it had grown dark and was time to drive back to our campsite. I was riding shotgun in a 71 Camaro, and there were 2 passengers stuffed in the back seat, making a total of 4 of us in the small muscle car. As we rumbled down an isolated road with no streetlights or traffic whatsoever, the driver pointed out what he thought was a person standing 50 yards off the side of the road in a small clearing surrounded by tall wheatgrass. He stopped the car and I quickly rolled down my window as he yelled, "Hey, do you need a ride?" This pale-looking individual just stood there, dead silent. The driver hollered again, "Hey, I said, do you need a ride?" There was still no answer. One last time he yelled at them, but more agitated, "Hey, do you need a fucking ride or not?" At that moment, this figure let out a wretched scream and barreled toward us, but that's when I noticed something really strange. It didn't look like this thing was running at all. Its legs actually appeared stationary as it rushed forward, zipping through the tall grass as if it weren't even there. I've never seen anything move with such fluidity, and I couldn't believe it didn't have to lift its legs at all to step over the field's thicker patches. Approaching us with haste, this thing wailed once again, making me roll up my window as fast as I could spin the lever, but that's when the Camaro's tires ripped across the pavement and got us the hell out of there. Thank God for American muscle. We arrived back at our campsite, totally shaken by what had happened. It's safe to say that everyone struggled to sleep that night, but I was so freaked out that I decided to sleep in the back seat of the Camaro with a sleeping bag pulled over my head. The next morning, we packed everything up and left. We drove by the spot where we had seen that freak the night before, but there was no evidence that it was ever there. My friends and I still talk about it to this day. They jokingly call it a zombie, but I know better. I think this was
A Banshee.
Now it's time for Ask the Aliens, where we cover atypical supernatural questions and throw out unique hypotheses. Question 1. Do you think it's better for new investigators to learn from more experienced teams and investigators, or to figure things out for themselves through time spent in the field? And what would make both ways beneficial?
I think there are things that we can learn from other teams and maybe save some time and not reinvent the wheel, trying to learn the same things over and over again. But for the most part, I think it's better if we all kind of branch out and do things on our own, try things, a certain way.
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of following along in each other's footsteps. There's so many things that we can learn, so much knowledge that we can gain if we just kind of do our own thing. Obviously, do it the right way, control your variables, things like that. But yeah, definitely do things on your own, I think, is probably a better approach. What do you think?
I'm a better learner when I do things myself. It's just how I've always been. It's one thing to watch somebody else do it, but then when you try to do it yourself, you're like, how did they do that again?
Yeah.
Same thing with a new job, training for a new job or something. For me, getting in there, doing it myself, learning it just by practicing. Same with a program on the computer. If you go in and you start messing with a program, you just kind of learn where all the buttons are and how everything works. That's how I learn. I'm better learner in action, so to speak, than just hey, do this, do that. Somebody trying to explain it to me.
You follow a guidebook or something like that, right?
Yeah. That's just kind of how I am. Not everybody learns that way. Some people like to hear it, I guess, or read about how to do it. I'm more of an action kind of guy. But when we started this, I didn't want our investigative techniques or videos or whatever to mimic anybody else. I wanted it to be our own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted to kind of stand out And for people not to go, oh, look they're just copying everybody else. They're just like this team and that team, and they're just doing what these guys do. There will always be similarities, but I didn't want another team or group of investigators to influence us to be a different way. I wanted us to be
Yeah.
unique to ourselves.
Yeah, the idea is that we came in, we definitely true to ourselves. We think we definitely paved our own way
Yeah.
through it all.
Obviously, you kind of start out as the newbie by doing it that way, but hey, that's a good way to learn. You try stuff, you fail sometimes, and you learn what works when you're out in the field. And I think that's just a good way about going about it. I think obviously, like stuff like gear, sure, you can learn that from people.
Yeah, that's what it kind of gets you where like you don't want to reinvent the wheel because you don't necessarily want to go to the same half a dozen EMF meters or anything like that, right? Like,
well, yeah,
why?
like somebody's like trying to show you a spirit box, you're like, I got it. Just give me the thing.
Yeah.
There's no point. Like if they could show you in like 2 seconds, then you're kind of seeing right in front of your eyes right before you do it. And so
Yeah.
I think some things it's good to have an open mind and hear others that have the more experience, kind of like the grandfather of the field, so to speak. But at the same time, sometimes it's getting out there, maybe getting out there with that person that's really experienced. So you get to learn on the fly, but also see them do it too.
Yeah, see them how they approach and their critical thinking and out in the field too, and build up from there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. You could go both ways, and both are beneficial, I'm sure. So,
what would happen if Bigfoot was proven real once and for all?
First off, if that happened right away, you'd have people that just want to hunt them. I think you have those kind of people who are like, oh, they exist.
Yeah.
Let's just go kill them all. Let's just go out there.
Yeah, immediately death and destruction comes to their mind, which is sad.
Anything people don't understand, they just want to destroy a lot of the times. Like
Yes.
if there was aliens, we probably want to go to war with them immediately. It's like rather than understand them or
learn
see
from
what they
them or
want.
whatever. Yeah.
So yeah, I think people would start hunting them right away, probably for sport, like for trophies. Like, hey, look at the Bigfoot head on my wall.
Definitely.
But also just out of fear, like, oh, these things are scary. Let's kill them before they can hurt us. What do you think about that?
I think I think be nice to know that there's like crazy beasts still out there. Because you read about it in stories and books and stuff like that, but to know that there's still something elusive out there that's in the wilderness that's still approachable, that's not like in the trenches of the deep ocean or something, that's kind of exciting. But like you were saying though, like how could we learn from them and not exploit them, right? Like how do we just not hunt them for trophies and sport? And that's the hard question. I don't know.
We always think of ourselves top of the food chain, so I don't think there's anything wrong with like if there's other beings out there or other life forms, especially if they're not trying to harm us, they're just trying to survive, then what's the problem? Like people shouldn't want to just go destroy their lives or kill them or whatnot.
Immediate trophy hunts or something. Yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah, why not try to understand them, understand why they're there, understand why they've avoided us for so long, and maybe there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, like how adaptable they've been, right? If they've been hidden for thousands of years, hundreds of tens of thousands of years.
For sure, man. The other thing, I think the government would try to immediately take over. And there's multiple things they could do. I was thinking about this. So the government would either do one of two things. They would either say, hey, let's hunt all these things. We'll put contractors out there to kill all these things. They would hire people. They'd put out a thing. Hey, you want to hunt these things for us?
Like
they're doing the same thing with pythons in Florida, but obviously that's an issue out there. They're killing all the animals. But the same kind of thing. They'd probably say, hey, let's hire some contractors.
Put a bounty
to kill
out
them
there,
all.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Just like how they want to clear out certain amount of animals, like if there's too many coyotes or too many wolves, they start killing them all. And again, a lot of that stuff's understandable for farming and whatnot, but they would probably do it for them just to wipe them out, to make them go extinct. Probably they'd either do that or they'd have the opposite, and they'd put all these protections in place where you're not allowed to hunt them and only they're allowed to decide that or hunt them or study them and all that kind of stuff. They would probably want control either way, total control.
Didn't think about that aspect. I definitely would think, they would definitely jump in, and
it'd be immediate involvement, like whether it's them deciding this or deciding that. They always want to kind of run everything. And just like Area 51, they love keeping us in the dark. So that's just the truth. Next question. Okay. What do you think makes a house become haunted, and why aren't all old houses haunted, since someone most likely died in almost every house? Especially old houses.
I had to think about this one just because, like you're saying, if not every house is haunted, yet somebody have died. I would just think that us as living beings, we imprint energy into our surroundings. Like the more violent actions kind of scar things, and that's what we pick up. Like when we come through after the fact, that's the only explanation. Some violent act just leaves a heavier impression that we can read off of. We can get impressions off of that.
Yeah, I think
What do you
so.
think?
Like, they call it residual energy. It's just like that negative energy that's happened there. And maybe some houses, it's like more than one thing. Like
Mhm.
somebody committed suicide there. Then there's a homicide. And then like 100 years later, there's another homicide.
Mhm.
And it's this thing after thing. And maybe a kid drowned in a well or something. And you have so many deaths there and so many negative things happening that residual energy builds up over time. And it just becomes like this crazy magnet for activity. It's weird, man.
Yeah, just this layer, I would say layer of energy, but just this energy that envelops an area or something like
Yeah,
that. That's
and
what
then
we pick up on.
and then when people call stuff like that portals or whatnot, like
Yeah.
that's probably what kind of happens to that. What could happen is a lot of these spirits need closure of some kind.
Mhm.
Maybe they died a certain way and they want people to figure it out, or maybe they've got family still living that they want to be around, or maybe that house actually has a lot of meaning to them. They got a lot of memories there. And so, they want to stick around like, hey, my grandfather built this with his bare hands, so
Yeah.
I want to be here because I have all those memories. And maybe the new family that moves in, they kind of attach to because maybe they want to see them create the same kind of memories in that house that used to be their families. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they like projected their like brother, their sister into that family or whatever, which is why they're more likely to hang around and whatnot.
And like you said, we're talking about, I think a lot of it depends on how they died.
Mhm.
If they died and it was just like of old age, they probably don't have a lot of anger or things to hold on to. But like,
Yeah.
if they're murdered by an uncle or something, it's like, okay,
Yeah, that's definitely something wrong. Jeez.
that probably makes them become more malevolent, whereas
Yeah.
a spirit might die of old age or something and they don't go out angry. They lived a full life and they were happy when they died, or, they at least went out peacefully. And then this other spirit went out screaming and fighting. And so they become like these malevolent spirits at that point.
Yeah, they're not ready to move on, so they're kind of hanging around. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So hard to say. Yeah.
And sometimes you'll have a house that when you first move in, there's nothing. And then like in our case, we do all these investigations and then something follows you home. And then
They start picking up on your energy wherever you are.
yeah. And then
So-
I think that's more like they're haunting a person rather than a house at that point. They're
Yeah,
trying to
at
attach
that
to you.
point.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
On that topic, then what would you prefer? Getting evidence of spirits, extraterrestrials, or cryptids?
Man, this is so hard for me because first off, we've caught a lot of spiritual evidence, which
Mhm.
I feel fulfilled in what we've caught for spirits. It's proven to me
Agreed.
what I already knew. I've already seen demonic stuff in my life. I've already had weird things happen since I was
Kind
a
of
kid.
a been there, done that kind of thing with that.
Yeah, once you get
Yeah.
so much, it's not like I need to keep getting more to prove to myself. Honestly, I feel like a lot of teams get so much that they could probably say, hey, we got enough. But some of them might have certain things they're trying to get out of it. Like maybe they want to get certain answers, not just know they're there, but they want to have certain conversations. Like what's the next life like? And how did you
Yeah.
die? And why are you still here talking to us? And why aren't you in heaven or this or that? So there could be
Yeah,
a reason behind that. But
there's definitely value in their continued like pursuit of that. But
Yeah.
like say for you, us, it's
Yeah.
probably been there, done that.
Yeah, I think if I didn't see so much when I was younger, then
True.
just hearing a few voices probably wouldn't be enough. But since I've already seen them, I've seen like bathtubs turn on full blast and doors slam and all this other stuff. It's just kind of proved what I already knew. So
Yeah, kind of just maybe reaffirm that it wasn't dreams when you were a kid. It was just okay. You weren't crazy. That was what just happened.
yeah,
And,
for sure. Well, what about you? I'll jump back to it, but I'm curious what you think about this.
For me, tough choice too. Kind of not the spirits so much. So it's between extraterrestrial or COVID cryptids.
COVID.
Jeez.
We don't want to know about no evidence.
Yeah, we don't want to know about that one. But I would say like ETs maybe, just because we can learn from like their tech.
Yeah.
Maybe go back to their home world or something, and then we can go hop on their ship and go hunt for like alien world cryptids or something. I don't know.
Cruising, man.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun, I think.
The spaceships would be probably pretty cool to see. There's something about space though, man. It kind of freaks me out a little bit.
A little
not
bit
gonna lie.
freaky because there's no up or down, but
We have no control. It's what I always say with even flying in a plane. Like if the pilot gets drunk and decides to take it down, I mean, you're not going to be able to stop the thing, you know?
Yeah.
Your life's just not in your control. And if you're on some alien spaceship, it all comes down to how nice they want to treat you and what they're going to allow.
Well, we're hoping that like we're coming from a friendship here.
Yeah.
Friendship kind of relationship here.
Friends?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope. But if it took so long for them to show themselves to us, they might not be all that nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they just want to study us and tear our heads off, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing for me, I love cryptids, man. I don't know. It's so crazy. It's exciting investigating those. A dog man or a Bigfoot or a Wendigo or a skinwalker or a Mothman. I mean, there's so much stuff out there.
There's so many, like even the freaky humanoid ones, you know, the ones with like 3 fingers or, you know, just anything creepy. Knowing that they're out there, again, not like in the deep ocean, which is not like accessible to you or I. I mean, you know, we can't just hop on a submarine and, you know, go out exploring.
Even if most of them, let's say 70% of them don't exist, it's just people's imaginations, or, you know, maybe a spirit took a weird form or something. I'm sure there's still some out there because there are so many sightings in every state and country. Michigan alone is known for Dogman. They call it Michigan Dogman. And then they've got Bigfoot. And then they've got Wendigo. Those are the 3 big ones here, the biggest out in Michigan. That's crazy. 3 different types. It's like,
yeah, and they're all consistent in their like eyewitness sightings and stuff too. So it's not, you know, there's commonality between these, so, or between each one rather.
I think there's a lot of them that are the same, but people just interpret them a certain way. Like, you know, it's interesting because Skinwalker and Wendigo, they're both from like Native American folklore, but they could be one and the same, where maybe one just had horns and one didn't, and you know, maybe people interpret them a certain way where they're and really like the same thing.
Yeah, like there could have been the adult versus teenager one, right? Horns without horns. But
it could be. I mean, nobody probably knows that for sure.
Yeah, nobody knows their genealogy or physiology to that level, obviously.
I mean, they might start from like a different tribe or folklore, but ultimately, if you think of
one and the same, creature.
Yeah, if you think of Wendigo, Skinwalker, and Rake, they all look pretty much the same. These skinny creatures with like rotten skin. They stink. They usually have like this bald looking face, except for the one has horns, the Wendigo. I think the Wendigo though sometimes has a skull face, you know.
Yeah, more of like I won't say goat, but like a more of a creature, right? Yeah.
Little bit different, but But I'm just saying, you know, these could all be different manifestations of the same kind of creature. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
And one could be in this area, it looks a little different to adapt to their environment, but over here, you know, they adapt a little different. Or maybe one of them, the skin just happened to come off the face, you know, so you see the bone more, you know.
You got like crazier battles or something. Yeah, who knows? Like,
yeah, you know, I've read all the folklores on this stuff, and I forget some of it sometimes just because I don't like constantly study it. But I've heard all the eyewitness stories. They all sound so similar. Just like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, wood booger, you know, Yeti. Those are all similar too, but they're all different as well. They'll say different heights, different looks, different colors. So you never know, man. But yeah, man, cryptids are awesome. Like that is my ultimate goal for all my supernatural investigations. My main goal is to get one cryptid, just to get that proof of the at least one cryptid to say we got evidence that nobody can deny.
Yeah, we're not out, again, like we were mentioning before, we're not out to like bag them as trophy or anything like that. Purely just to catch them on, you know, lure them in, catch them on camera.
You know what's funny?
Go from there.
Probably the opposite. When we're out there, one of them's like, I'm going to bag one of these humans.
Yeah. We're the peaceful ones, dig it.
Yeah, we're the trophies to them. You know, they're going to bag my next human and hang him up and turn him into a Wendigo. Like,
oh, jeez.
But the closer we get, I'm just so excited for the spring when we film our next cryptid show. It's going to be all out insanity. We're going to be out there at night trying to lure these things in no matter what it takes, come hell or high water. You know, something comes in and rips me to shreds. If you get it on camera, it was worth it, man.
Exactly, right? You'll be at least infamous. Dead, but infamous.
Yeah, they'll be like, this is some infamous, crazy hunter, man.
Yeah.
He's the real deal, the OG, you know?
You get a bronze statue somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Heck yeah, man. All right, that's our episode tonight. Thanks for stopping by. If you want to go subscribe to our YouTube, it's Night Stalker Investigations. You can also go find me on Facebook at Night Stalker Brodog. And you can find me on Instagram at Night Stalker Investigations. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.